It's a starting place for a conversation, guys. Don't come at me and be like, oh, you're going to take my guns away. It's a slippery slope. I understand all those things, but I'm trying to have a productive conversation, not tell you how to live your life. Some different types of firearms and some different reform ideas that I think could make sense. You know, I had a conversation with a very pro 2A guy. His name's Johnny. I forget his last name. Sorry, Johnny. On IG Live yesterday. Really good conversation, right? He's a New Yorker, so he has a different view of somebody than I grew up in Texas and now I live in Colorado. I'm in the West, so we have a different culture in both places, and New York has a very different culture as well. He experiences some of the most restrictive, crazy gun laws. I don't, never really have. Some are silly. And I think we have to have a conversation of, when I look at this, I think we need to audit the entire firearm system, right? I'm not talking about making a national gun registry or limiting the number of guns someone can own. I'm not doing that. I'm not talking about people taking your shit either. Okay. So I don't need those comments. I don't need those feedback. That's not what I'm saying. I will say this, as I talk about reform and different types of firearms, I will never advocate. Let me repeat this and remember this. I will never advocate for something that will limit someone's right to defend themselves. That is one of the most foundational pieces of the Second Amendment. And I am super grateful for that. And I have a lot of respect for the Second Amendment and the way that we have gone about it. But I think we need to look at some things a little differently. So with that being said, I'm going to pull up a few different firearms. All these firearms are legally owned by me. They're all unloaded. And I'll demonstrate that with each one because that's what you should do. And we're going to have a discussion because here's again, what I want to do with this. So many people are condescending pricks, right? And Coleon de War is not, but like they don't ever go through the basics, the 101 of long guns. We're not going to talk about handguns here. I do have one here that I can show you, but we're going to go through the basic 101s of long guns, shotguns, ARs, different types of rifles. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a lever action 30-30. This is the kind of thing you used to see in a John Wayne movie. I got this gun when I was about 10 years old. Of course, it wasn't mine. I didn't own it, but it was for me. This was my primary deer rifle when I was a kid. So what you'll see here again, and I know you guys on audio only are going to have a hard time with this, but this is a lever action rifle. Okay. Again, this is like some John Wayne shit. We're not going to talk about this much, but just so you know, lever action makes sense, right? The lever runs the action. Again, it is unloaded. All of these guns are unloaded and they all are legally owned by me. Instagram, Facebook, you guys know what I'm talking about, YouTube. Okay. Lever action rifle, technically a long gun, not something we're going to talk about, but something that's, you know, I want you to know what you're talking about, whether you're criticizing the Second Amendment or praising it, know what you're talking about. Okay. This is not going to be super technical, but we're just going through the basics. My slings are getting all caught up here. Again, unloaded, right? This is a semi-automatic hunting style shotgun. Now I say hunting style because you have home defense style shotguns and you have tactical style shotguns, which are very similar. And you also have, there's a wide variety of shotguns, magazine fed shotguns. This is fed through a tube here, holds 5 rounds in the tube. It has only holds 3 now because it has a plug in it, which makes it legal for hunting most winged animals. So it holds 2 in the chamber, go out to 5, and 2 in the tube, 1 in the chamber. So it's loaded on the bottom here, 1 at a time. Okay. The lever action I just showed you is loaded from the side, 1 at a time. It's important. Think about that. We have here is your typical hunting rifle. Okay. This is a bolt action rifle. This is calibered in 300 Win Mag. Empty. Okay. Bolt action. Okay. So what this means, this is very common amongst almost all firearms, is the bolt. What pushes the cartridge forward. Right. And this is manually driven. 1 at a time. You unlock the bolt, pull it back, rechamber around. Okay. This one is magazine fed, but many are not. You would load them through the action here. Okay. And then this, again, empty, is an M4 from Aero Precision. This is, now, people, when they want to discredit you or strawman, you will say, it's not an assault rifle, it's not an AR-15, it's an M4, it's an M16. They're just trying to big dick you to distract you so they don't actually have to have a conversation. Okay? AR-15s, M16s, and M4s are all built on the Aerolite platform. Or is Aerolite? Yeah. Armalite. No, Armalite, excuse me. This is Aero Precision. I got those mixed up. Armalite platform. Okay? So when you say AR does not stand for assault rifle, I know that makes the most sense based on the nomenclature of the time. That is not what it stands for. It stands for Armalite. Okay? This is magazine fed. And I have one right here. Now again, this magazine is empty. It is loaded from the bottom, like so. Magazine comes out like here. Okay. And I wanted to show these to demonstrate something. All right. Let's use, people will say, some people like to call these modern sporting rifles for whatever reason. I don't understand why they would be called that any more than the inappropriate term assault rifle. Now, people will say assault rifle or assault weapons, whatever, was a term manufactured from the radical left to make these things sound scary. That is a lie. The term assault rifle was popularized in the 80s to speak about civilian models of guns like these and military models. They said assault rifle, assault pistol, and people say, well, assault weapons was a term that was made up. If you want to play that semantic game with me, f off. Okay? Because if I had an Uzi, which they called an assault pistol in the 80s, right? And I have an AR or an M16 or an M4, which they called an assault rifle in the 80s, I have assault weapons. It's plural. You get it? You get how that makes sense? So let's stop being condescending pricks because we know more about guns than somebody who didn't grow up around guns or isn't interested in guns, right? Because being a condescending prick doesn't really do anything, does it? It's not really productive. It just makes you feel good for trying to make somebody else feel stupid. Charlie Kirk, I'm talking to you. If you want to have a gun knowledge battle, I would love to do that anytime, any place. But I don't feel the need to be a condescending prick to people that I know more about guns than they do for my own self-satisfaction. So for some reason, just like now, the anti-gun folks have used assault rifle to make these things sound scary, even though it was used in the 80s because sounding scary was cool and movies like Predator were out, right? It was popular. That's when they got popularized. Now they're calling them, the pro-gun people are calling them modern sporting rifles. Okay? Now I want to have a conversation about what I would consider a modern sporting rifle. My Browning 300 Win Mag right here. This rifle is used for sport. Now I understand that 3-gun is a sport, but modern sporting implies hunting. There's really one great hunting application for an AR-15 or an AR-10 or an M4 or an M16, and that's hunting pigs. Hunting pigs, it's very effective, incredibly effective. Because you want your goal with hunting pigs as a nuisance species and an invasive species that are wrecking natural environments is to kill as many as possible. Right? Similar to the way a mass shooter in a grocery store or a school or a movie theater is generally trying to kill as many people as possible. Right? So the effectiveness overlaps. Quick target acquisition, light, almost no recoil. Now, when I think about firearms and what their uses are and their practicality, I think about caliber, rate of fire, and capacity. And by capacity, I mean how many rounds a magazine will hold. Okay, the magazine I have here for this this M4 is a 30-round magazine. Now, that opposed to what I consider a modern sporting rifle, the Browning X-Bolt, a very high-end, consumer model hunting rifle. Very light, very little recoil thanks to what's called a muzzle brake here on the end, that ported barrel there, which disperses the recoil out to the sides and up and down, kind of around the barrel so it doesn't come into your shoulder, which allows you to follow up shots on animals. Say you shoot an elk, the gun doesn't pop as much up and back, so you're able to get back on target quickly if you need to make a follow-up shot. That being said, this thing holds 4 rounds. The 300 round mag holds 4 rounds, whereas this AR can hold up to, 150 if you have a double barrel mag. Like, that's a thing. So yeah, we need to be honest about the conversation that this 300 Win Mag and this M4 are not the same thing. Yes, they're both rifles. In the same way that a base model F-150 and a Ford Raptor are both F-150s and both pickups, but they're sure as fuck not the same thing. Same thing can be said for a modern F-150 of any type and a semi-truck. Yeah, they have wheels and they go down the road, but they're not the same thing. And I think we need to have an honest discussion about that. Does that mean I want everybody? I'm not Beto O'Rourke. I'm not telling you you don't need one. It's not my place to tell you you don't need one. It's no one's place to tell you you don't need one or what you need. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm trying to do is create a place for honest conversation and dialogue. So, after a little show and tell there, we have an idea from what is a modern sporting rifle and what is what I'll most accurately describe as a high capacity semi-automatic magazine fed rifle, or an AR, what is commonly known as an assault rifle, even though, again, that is an inappropriate term. So let's continue down this kind of rabbit hole of a regular consumer F-150 versus a semi-truck. You can get a driver's license at 16. In a lot of places, you can get a hardship license, like Texas, where I grew up, at 15 if you live far enough away from the school, and it's an undue burden on your parents to give you a ride, and there's no bus routes, right? So if you prove that you're capable at 15, you can get a driver's license at 15, called a hardship license. Generally get a license at 16. If you want to get a CDL, which allows you to drive an 18-wheeler or a big rig, you can get that at 18. But you cannot use that license out of state, the state it was issued, until you were 21. Because 18-year-olds are f***ing idiots. So let's have a conversation around what our current gun laws are in a lot of these states. Now, New York, California, Oregon, I don't know, y'all have a different situation. I'm talking to the Texas, the states in the West, South Dakota, Midwest, the heart of the country. As of now, you can buy a long gun, whether that be a shotgun or a rifle, at the age of 18. And you can buy handguns at the age of 21. Okay. That's pretty standard, right? If you want to go anything, if you want to conceal carry in a lot of states, Texas is a constitutional carry state. I think Utah is as well. More states are doing that now, where you need no concealed handgun license to carry a concealed handgun. But in a lot of states, you have to pass a concealed handgun course, which is an absolute joke, and then go and register that with the police department, do a background check, things like that. That's what it takes to carry a firearm around with you. In open carry states, you can carry it openly where it's visible, and that is legal as well. And I believe Colorado is an open carry state. So, but let's continue down this analogy. So you can't get a CDL till you're 18, and you can't take that CDL out of state till you're 21. That, to me, is actually a really good law. So our current gun laws, you can buy a long gun at 18, you can buy a pistol at 21. So what if we did this? I think there's place to have a few magazines here. I think there's some gun laws that are absolutely silly. This is a magazine for my SIG P370. If you see here, it has little dents on the side. This is probably a 16-round magazine that's been shortened to only hold 10 rounds. It's annoying, it's senseless, and it's ineffective. Because I mean, it comes with 3 of these. It does not hard. If I was actually going to do something with this that was criminal, I wouldn't be concerned about a 10-round magazine. I could just get another one somewhere else, anywhere, right? Local, whatever. And it's no big deal. This is a senseless gun law. A senseless gun law. Okay. Magazines are all over the place. They're easy to get. You can get them used. You can get them all over the place. If you want a 100-round magazine for a handgun, they exist, right? For most common production models for civilians. Senseless gun law needs to be rolled back. Another gun law that's absolutely senseless is the use of suppressors. If you want a suppressor, and I want a suppressor for this 300 Win Mag right here, because I would like to be able to hunt with it without having to use ear protection. I have to order that, pay the state a couple $100 a year, or the federal government a couple $100 a year. It stays in the ATF jail for about 8 months before it's released to me. That is a nonsense gun law based on the movies. Okay? Whenever you shoot a gun with a suppressor on it, the majority of that crack that you hear when you shoot a firearm or you hear a firearm go off is actually the bullet breaking the sound barrier. It has nothing to do with the actual firing of the gun. There's some noise associated with that, but a suppressor doesn't necessarily make a gun quiet. It just makes it not at the point where it would damage someone's hearing. In a lot of places, you're actually required to use a suppressor while hunting because it's a nuisance how loud they are. That's a silly gun law. Should be repealed. Should be rolled back, right? We have as I said, a complete audit of our system. There are so many nonsensical gun laws out there. Now, like I said, to have an honest conversation around the difference between a sporting rifle, a modern hunting rifle type setup, any of these guns I have here, except for this M4, except for this AR, right? We have to acknowledge that these are not the same thing. Okay. The rate of fire may be similar. I mean, this 300 Win Mag is much bigger than a 5.56 or 2.23 that most ARs are chambered in, right? So the actual round projectile is more deadly, but I have 4 shots per magazine, and it is a pain in the ass to reload. Even if I had 3 or 4 magazines, I can't get one of those out, put it in before somebody was able to rush me or tackle me if I wanted to go do something violent, right? Same can be said for the semi-automatic 12 gauge, right? Semi-automatic shotguns are actually are really famous for like having very little recoil. That's why I bought this one and changed out my pump action for this semi-auto. The rate of fire in this is a little slower, but relatively similar to an AR. But at most, it holds 5 rounds. Or 6, I guess, if you put one in the chamber. Right? And reload time means I have to take one shell and slide it through this action here at a time. That's not fast. Right? The rate of fire is very similar. Now, if we go to something like this John Wayne lever action, I could actually demonstrate, based on this action, the rate of fire. It's this. I get 6 of those, and then I've got to slide one individual cartridge through this hole right here to reload till I get it loaded up with 6 again. Versus this M4, where I can shoot 30 rounds in 20 seconds accurately, downrange, and then I just do this. And then this. And we're back in business. That's quite a bit of a difference. Am I right? But I think you should have a right to own one of these. Is it adequate for home protection? If you're trained, yeah, it could be. Is it the best thing for home protection for somebody who's untrained? Absolutely not. So, as we continue the discussion, I know this is long, guys, but I said we're doing Long Guns 101 today. So as we have this discussion, let's say this. 21 for handguns is appropriate. I also said I don't want to ever limit anybody's ability to protect themselves. And we're going to acknowledge that most hunting style consumer firearms and ARs. And also, I want to throw in something like this as well. This is unloaded. This is my SIG P370. I guess he's saying PIG, SIG 370. No, it's my SIG P370 M17. This is different than a modern revolver. Revolver holds 6 rounds, slow reload time. This is going to load very similar to an AR with a magazine like this. So we can say this is a little bit different than a little 38 special snub nose or something like that. So how about with this? We do classify them differently. And yes, I understand this is a slippery slope. And I'm as fearful of that slippery slope as well. But what if, and then again, this is a starting point for a conversation. What if really nothing changed when it comes to bolt action rifles, hunting style shotguns with lower capacity, like 5 or 6 rounds, like most of them have, your lever action cowboy guns, your breakover double barrel shotguns, over under, side by side, single shots, all that stuff, kosher, the way it is. Those aren't really used for these kind of shootings. Not something that needs to be addressed. And they're really great for home defense. You can get yourself, if you're someone out there who doesn't have a lot of gun experience and you're looking for something for home defense, I wouldn't recommend an AR. I wouldn't recommend a handgun. I'd recommend you get a tactical style home defense 20 gauge or 12 gauge and run buckshot out of it for a couple of reasons. One, it's a lot harder to miss with a shotgun. Close range, which would probably be in your apartment, is where that thing's going to be the most effective, which is exactly what you need. You also have less of an issue of bullets flying through the drywall into your neighbor's apartment, right? Now, buckshot will go through some drywall, but with much less velocity than a 5.56, 308, something like that, right? 7.62, AK-47, any of these kind of things. Like those things are going to move through drywall and barely get slowed down. Whereas buckshot, not so much, right? Highly effective for home protection. I'll have a lot of females that live by themselves for the first time, like, hey, I want to get a gun for home protection. I'm like, get yourself a 20 gauge, shorter barrel, and run that, put it under your bed. It's easy to use. If you don't feel like training, if you're not into this kind of thing, that's a great home protection firearm. If you want something to carry as someone for protection, you want something small, a little 38 special revolver, it's great for that, right? If someone's attacking you and you're in close proximity, you want something small so you can get a hold of it quick, turn it, maybe you're shooting it through your purse. Maybe you're shooting it through whatever you've got it in, right? That's not ideal, but these situations aren't ideal. So what I'm saying is an AR-15 isn't required for home protection. And I would argue, unless you are trained, it's not even the best option. But I never want to restrict your ability to have one. Unless you're 18 years old. Because 18-year-olds are f***ing idiots. And there is zero requirement. There's not any more requirement to buy that AR, or that M4, or that M16, or whatever you guys want to call it, right? And there is to buy that shotgun or that 300 Win Mag. But it's a completely different game. A completely different game. So here's what I propose, again, as a starting place for this conversation. What if we did this? Roll back some of these stupid gun laws, like 10-round magazines that are required, right? Make suppressors not stay in ATF jail for a year before you can get them, right? That's silly. There's a bunch of other, we can go down the list of all the silly gun laws that need to be rolled back. And we do this with semi-automatic pistols and high-capacity semi-automatic rifles. You got to be 25. You got to be 25 years old. Your prefrontal cortex is now fully developed. It's given people time to become violent criminals, to beat their wife up if they're going to do any of those things that would bar them from getting a gun, right? To getting one of these weapons. It's giving them time to do that. It's hard to become a criminal by the time you're 18. By the time you're 25, if you're a up, you're going to be up. Okay, now, I brought the hardship license in Texas for a reason. If you would like to get one between the ages of 18 and 25, you have to pass a competency course and a mental health check. No big deal. I think that could actually be a great jobs program for former military veterans, former police officers, former people that trained in the military, to show people how to use these firearms, what to do with them, how to appropriately store them, how to do the basics, how to clean them. Make it a one-day course. Make it subsidized by the government. Doesn't cost you $20, right? Not cost prohibitive. locally available. You could partner with Bass Pro Shop and Shields and Cabela's and these other places. Make it happen. All right, partner with local shooting ranges. You've now created a jobs program for former police, trainers, and military veterans, while also providing easily accessible firearm education and training to people that want to get involved and get engaged. But by the time you're 25, if you don't have a criminal record, you're not beating up women or assaulting people or robbing stores or whatever the you're doing, I don't know. All the things that can keep you becoming a felon, all the things that can keep you from getting a firearm, well, then that's your debt. But if you want one before then, there's an accessible pipeline for you to get one before the age of 25. And the thing is, most people who are over 25 can attest to this. You're not really an adult until you're 25. And yes, I understand that you can go fight and die in foreign wars when you're at the age of 18. And I think that's bullshit too. I think you should be at least 21 before you can enlist in the military. But that would damage the people that own our politicians. So that won't happen. So there is my Gun 101 and proposed reform. Again, it's a starting place for a conversation, guys. It's a starting place. Don't come at me and be like, oh, you're going to take my guns away. It's a slippery slope. I understand all those things. But I'm trying to have a productive conversation, not tell you how to live your life. And that's the difference between me as somebody who's politically homeless and the people that are screaming and yelling online. Here's the deal, Jack. YouTube hates us. They hate us. We're being persecuted against. I don't want to say it's because of my race, but we can make some assumptions. You know what I'm talking about? And one thing you can do to really help this channel out is subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, turn on post notifications, and leave a comment on this video. Okay? Overcome the hatred. Be the change you want to see in the world. Live, laugh, love. Subscribe to the fucking YouTube channel.